This is the free motion quilting tutorial for Storm of Palms. This design is being sponsored by Isocord Polyester Thread Set, available at freemotionquilt.com. Support the project and give yourself the gift of the best thread for free motion quilting on your home machine. Now let's get back to Storm of Palms. This design is stitched by first coming up with a wiggly line. Then you're going to backtrack and you're going to kind of wiggle off with a set of 3 or 4 kind of wiggly shapes right there at the end. You can see I kind of create 3 shapes and then 2 underneath that and 2 more underneath that to create almost kind of like a puffball, I guess, kind of shape. You really can't think of it any other better way. Then I'm going to kind of wiggle around this and I'm going to echo it, bringing my stitch in between each line shape, so that way it creates an effect that kind of looks like a palm tree. I'm going to travel stitch and continue to echo this multiple times, expanding it, branching it out, making it bigger so that way it stands out on the surface of the quilt. To move on, you're simply going to branch off with another wiggly line and more kind of palm fronds is the best way you could think of it. Play with how you stitch those. It might help to wiggle them in one direction. It might help to fill one side then the other. Or you might work best by stitching both sides of both fronds at the same time. Everybody's different. You can see I'm kind of wiggling my way back to that starting point, just building up a little bit of texture there. And really trying to just make these palms stand out as much as I can on the surface of my quilt. Now it's kind of hard to tell whether this is an echoing design or a pivoting design, and those designs types are so very similar that it honestly doesn't really matter. But in this situation I was stitching this as a pivoting design, so I'm returning to my starting point to echo stitch each palm tree. And that is going to build up the texture right there at that starting point. It's going to make it a little darker. And it's also, in my opinion, a little easier to stitch because you're not having to travel stitch in order to come up with an echo. So you can see I go back to that starting point, pivot, echo around that palm tree, come back and hit that point again. Everyone's different though. If you want to stitch this as an echoing design and swirl around, then travel stitch and get a little different distance away and come around it, that's perfectly fine too. It's really entirely up to you. And really with all of these designs, you've kind of got to just figure out the best way for you to stitch it. And then everything will work out great on the surface of your quilt. You can see that I generally work this in a row. So I'm kind of working from left to right first across the quilt. I'm going to fill in this corner, and then whenever I fill up that row completely, I'm just simply going to rotate my quilting space and work straight down, filling in the rest of the kind of palms going in a downward direction. And this is just the way it works best for me. If it works best for you to work from right to left or to work from the bottom of your quilting space straight up, definitely try that. Try a variety of different directions before you pick the direction that works best for you. And you know what's going to work best by how natural it feels. If it feels like it's flowing naturally, if you feel like you could do it all day, if it doesn't feel like it's difficult, then that is the way that you need to be free motion quilting. And it really just takes practice to figure out what works best. So here's what it looks like when you finish Storm of Palms. For over 250 videos on free motion quilting, plus many tools and supplies to make this easier on your home sewing machine, check out daystyledesigns.com or freemotionquilt.com.